At a gas station, the strange sound coming from the trunk of a car drew the attention of several customers. Curious, one of them approached the car and listened carefully. He promptly called the police. "Hello, there's a car with license plate number 22F130 parked here at the Pine Street gas station. I hear a woman's voice coming from the trunk." The police arrived quickly, opened the trunk, and found a young woman in a nightgown. She burst into tears upon seeing the officers and explained her ordeal to the sheriff. "Chief, did you work with me? Come to Jane. I want you to investigate the Water nightclub case, the one a woman complained about a few days ago. I need you to handle it," the chief instructed. Jane read the nightclub's complaint case multiple times and decided to visit the nightclub herself as a customer. On Saturday night, Jane arrived at the nightclub where a line of young men and women waited to enter. A few men emerged from the club, selecting some of the women. The voices of the young women begging for attention piqued Jane's curiosity. She approached someone in line and asked, "How much is the entry fee?" "It is free." Jane was surprised and continued, "Free?" Another woman chimed in, "I came from another city and had to be chosen, but this is where our fate changes." Another added, "I aspire to be hired here." Their words only fueled Jane's curiosity. When she got home, she immediately turned on her computer and entered the nightclub staff chat room, noting all their peculiar conversations. The next morning, Jane compiled everything she had observed and read into a report and submitted it to her chief. He reviewed the report and asked, "What's this about a glass of water costing $500 tips?" Jane explained, "Yes, the waiters compete for a glass of water." "You need to break into the club anyway, Jane. I will chief." The doorbell rang. Jane opened the door to find a large package. Inside was a beautiful and expensive dress, a necklace, and a letter from her boss. The letter contained a single sentence, "Don't lose this precious necklace." At 9 p.m., Jane, dressed in the new attire, waited outside the nightclub with a group of young women. A black car with dark-tinted windows briefly stopped by the club before driving away. As before, a few men came out, and one of them began selecting women. "You, me?" Jane asked. "Yes, come in," was the reply. Inside the club, the walls were made of glass, giving it a caged appearance. Some girls and boys danced, while others sat alone, smoking or drinking. Waiters moved around with empty glasses and bottles. A waiter approached Jane's table and asked, "What do you want?" "A glass of water," Jane replied. The waiter seemed surprised and asked again, "Are you sure?" The young woman at the adjacent table interjected, "2 brandy cherries, please," and then turned to Jane. "Can I sit here?" "Of course," Jane said. "Is this your first time at the club?" "Yes," Jane answered. "Here the waiters know all the regular customers and water isn't served to newcomers." "Why?" Jane asked. "Without explaining," the woman replied, "our brands are coming." On Monday morning, Jane presented her report to the chief. "Is this all you found, Jane?" "Yes, it's like most nightclubs. I've included everything I observed." The boss, reading the report, said, "You need to go back. There are many things hidden from the law's eyes." Jane realized her report was inadequate and immediately went to the archives to search for complaints against the nightclub. She found only 2 complaints. Jane noted the address of one complainant and visited her home. A young woman in her early 20s answered the door. Jane introduced herself, but the woman quickly said, "I have no complaints about the nightclub," and shut the door. Jane realized her report was inadequate and immediately went to the archives to search for complaints against the nightclub. She found only 2. Jane noted the address of one complainant and decided to visit her home. A young woman in her early 20s answered the door. Jane introduced herself, but the woman quickly said, "I have no complaints about the nightclub," and shut the door. Jane knocked again. When the woman opened the door a second time, she said, "Drop my lawsuit file. There was nothing there, and nothing happened to me. I just wanted to get money from them." With that, she slammed the door shut. However, the girl's face betrayed something deeper, something she was trying to hide. Jane thought, "Tomorrow, I will go to her workplace until she opens up and tells me what I need to know." The next day, Jane waited for the girl. When she got off the bus, Jane quickly approached her. "You again?" the girl said. "I told you I dropped the case." "I really need your help," Jane pleaded. I can't let what happened to you happen to another innocent girl. If I help you, I could be putting my life in danger. Do you understand that? I promise I won't let anybody hurt you. Just tell me about that nightclub." The girl hesitated before asking, "Do you have a pen and paper?" "Yes, I do." "Then write this address down. Today at 6 p.m., come to this coffee shop and wait for me there." An hour passed after 6 o'clock, and the girl still hadn't shown up. Worried, Jane headed to the girl's home. The wind howled through the trees, and the dim streetlights cast eerie shadows as Jane approached the girl's house. It was dark when Jane arrived, and she sensed something was wrong. The door was ajar, and inside, Jane's professional instincts kicked in as she entered the girl's home. Her duty was clear: find the truth and protect those in need, no matter the personal cost. She found the girl beaten, with swollen eyes and a torn mouth. Jane's breath quickened as she found the door ajar. The sight that greeted Jane made her realize the gravity of the situation. Time was running out, and every second counted. She immediately called for an ambulance. Jane thought to herself, "The chief is right." The following Saturday, she returned to the nightclub, which was now pouring rain. The man who selected young women saw Jane and allowed her to enter. Jane seized the opportunity to slip into the staff area under the pretense of seeking shelter from the rain. In the long hallway lined with several rooms, a waiter approached Jane sharply. "What are you doing here?" "I'm wet. I need a towel to dry off," Jane explained. "Stay here until I get back," the waiter said, heading into one of the rooms. Moments later he emerged, pocketing something with a satisfied smile before handing Jane a towel and waiting for her to dry off and leave. Jane took a seat at an empty table surrounded by several young women. Shortly after, a waiter brought her a glass of water. "I didn't order this," Jane said. "You were invited to a glass of water," the waiter replied. Jane tried to pick up the glass, but the waiter said, "Please follow me." Jane complied, and they walked through a long hallway. The waiter opened a door, and Jane entered the room as it closed behind her. "Welcome, Sergeant," a man said. "I think you've got the wrong person." "I'm not a sergeant," Jane replied. The man turned to Jane with a smile. "What have you brought here?" "The cases of those two girls." "I don't know what you're talking about." "I'm not a sergeant," Jane insisted. "Here we don't do anything against the law," the man said. "All the girls here just want to attract rich men to make a touch." Before he could finish, a waiter entered with a tray that had a glass of water and a camera on it. The man took the glass and brought it near Jane's mouth. "You wanted a glass of water, remember?" Jane took the glass and drank some of it. The chief was talking to a doctor when Jane opened her eyes. A nurse emerged from a room and said, "She's back." The men immediately entered the room. Jane looked around, confused. "Chief, what am I doing here? I was at the nightclub. How did I get here? I don't remember anything." "Rest for now, Jane." "Why am I here, Chief? What happened?" "When you're well, I'll explain everything. For now, you need to rest." "I want to know now." "The glass of water you drank contained a sexual assault drug," the chief said. Jane looked puzzled. The chief continued, "The nightclub is a trap for women. Rich men select their favorites from behind a glass wall. The drugged water impairs the women's ability to think clearly, making them vulnerable to whatever the men want." "But how did you know?" Jane asked. The chief pointed to the necklace Jane was wearing. "We saw and heard everything through this." Taking Jane's hand, he said, "Now, you should rest."